Hey, this is Track Bully with a short tutorial on the racing lines at Balladonia. Before I get into the tutorial, I would like to say one quick word about racer etiquette. Clean racing is one of the most important principles you will learn as a forum member here. It's very important that you learn your own clean racing lines without being hyper aggressive or taking other racers out. It especially becomes important because the forum puts you in direct contact with your competitors, and you want to be known as a clean racer throughout the game. Now, I'm going to break this tutorial up into three parts. I'm going to slowly walk through the various field markers on Balladonia. I'm going to talk about the gearbox, and I'm also going to talk about braking points. One of the reasons that Balladonia is so difficult is because every turn that happens throughout the course feels more wrong than the last turn. So people have a very difficult time getting good at this course, but I'm going to help as much as I can for you to understand what to listen for and what to look for to help you sharpen your lap times at Balladonia. So let's begin the lesson. Okay, so at the starting lineup, what you want to do is just take off normally. And you just come full throttle down through this area right here. And the first area I want you to pay attention to is this area right here. This little rise in the road is very deceiving. First of all, just around this bend right here, the turn begins to sharpen, so the radius of your turn has to sharpen at the same time that the road does, and it's very difficult to make it around here without slipping off the track, especially if you're pushing it with a hot throttle. If you'll notice on the left hand side there's the orange track there. I always imagine that this orange track has exactly the same surface as the tarmac, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just put my car half on the orange siding there and the other half on the tarmac. And the reason that I do that is so that I can help to smooth the radius of this turn. Now, it's an optical illusion that pushes you out into the road that doesn't need to be there. So by trimming the side here just a little bit, it's very helpful to make the radius of turns 1 and turn 2 a little easier for you to make it around. So as we progress up a little farther, you'll see this black shadow line. This shadow line for the first lap is my braking point, and through here I'm usually feathering the brakes to stay as close as I can to the inside line of the course. And the reason that's important is because you can gain the most amount of speed and it shortens the distance of the track. The next thing that I want you to notice is right here. It's called the turn throat. You enter the car into the turn throat and you will have a much easier time adhering to your inside line. Okay, so now as we progress down a little bit further, I try and keep the throttle open through as much of this part of the track as possible until about right here. Depending on the amount of speed that I hit, this is my next braking point. It's just before the end of the skid line here, headed into turn 3. The car will downshift once about right here, and then a second time about right here. It's at that second downshift that you want to release the gas. You don't want to go down into first gear here. You want to travel through from second gear and sweep up. This will give you the maximum amount of speed throughout this corner. And you'll note that I'm going as wide as possible here, and you end up having to because if you're taking off out of second gear out of that corner, you need all the room you can get. Okay. So progressing down a little bit farther, you'll notice the next shadow line right here. Just beyond this shadow line is where you want to hit your brakes again. Now, notice the way that I'm angling my car to the outside of this corner. I'm going to make this radius, this turn radius, as wide as I can. braking through here until right at the tip of this apex. At the tip of the apex, or just before, I'm releasing and back on the gas again. I've taken the widest possible turn, and again I come to T5. Now at T5, your braking line is right here at the skid mark. And you're going to hold your brake down to about right here. This is about halfway through the corner. Once you can skillfully go through this corner without sliding off, and you've successfully braked enough to hold your line, you come close to the inside there, leave it full throttle until right there. At the end of that blue rumble strip on the left is where you begin to brake again, headed into T6. Now, in T6, you want to shoot wide and outside here, aiming for the outside rumble strip to give you the widest radius back into the turn. You're still braking until the very middle point of the apex of T6. At that point, you should be back on the gas again right here. T7 is a very tricky corner. Most racers, when they head into T7, will brake right here and it will put them back in first gear. But to get the fastest speed, you want to hold second gear. You will hear the gear shift about right here into second gear. The way you hold second gear around this corner is to shoot wide towards the outside left here and feather the brakes all the way through this turn. Now, if you don't make it using second gear, you're going to drop back down into first gear. And that's okay, but it's not going to give you your hottest lap. So, I'm going to take you a little bit farther down the field into the final turn, which is T8. Now, at about this point right here, that you will be shifting either into third gear or into second gear. When you hear the engine pop into that gear, you need to keep the throttle on for just about a second longer to carry you all the way down into T8. T8, you want to stay as inside as you possibly can to the corner, touching the rumble strips, and accelerate at the quickest point on your exit out. Generally, that is the racing lines for Balladonia. Now, we're going to speed it up and just look at it part by part. We're going to do the first lap and then a flying lap to demonstrate what's happening here. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of the race. I'm full throttle right here. I'm going to shave the radius of this corner by touching the orange and brake right there at that shadow line. As I come around here, I stay as close to the inside as possible, brake, I go wide, touch the center strip, and back up the outside, shooting, making that radius as wide as I possibly can, braking right there at the skid line, coming to the outside, braking at the rumble strip, and coming around the corner here. I widen these radiuses and try and keep into second gear through right here. Now T8, try and stay as close as I can to the inside line. Okay, so here we are in a flying lap. Now the braking point's going to change here because you're already going a little bit faster. So here I go to trim the course to keep the radius tight. I've braked a little earlier, and now I'm back on the brakes right here. I widen it out, touch the center point on the rumble strips, come wide outside here, widen the radius of that corner, brake at the skid line, accelerate all the way to the end of that rumble strip, back on the brake, as close as I can to the rumble strips again, widen it out, hold second gear, flying down the lane, brake right there, come back up, and that is your flying lap at Balladonia. Alright, that concludes the tutorial at Balladonia Raceway, and remember one thing, be courteous to your fellow racers. See you out there.